Hi, everybody, and we are back. I hope you used the break to meet a new friend or hop around at a table, learn something new, or reconnect with an old pal of yours from prior conference circuits. We are going to have a very fascinating panel now, and we're going to talk about data and analytics and how it pertains to customer experience. And so I'm bringing up to the stage three of my most entertaining data folks. We're joined by Vijay Iyengar from Eisai, who is, I think, in a gymnasium.
That's my basement.
And it's just, well, how about that? And Kim Skrabonja from, what are we now? Abbvie.
Abbvie.
And then also, last but not least, we're going to invite Chris Franklin from Bayer to come up on stage by just turning his camera on and his mic on.
Start.
And okay. And turn your mic on, Chris, and we'll get started. So we're just going to do this because, Chris, you can introduce yourself, but you're going to also have to explain yourself.
Yes, well, I got bored during COVID, so decided to grow this nice long Fu Manchu out of boredom, being cooped up, and pieces of St. Patty's Day are the remnants that are here. So thank you, appreciate for being here. I'm with Bayer, been at Bayer for about 3 years, and now I'm just moving into a global data strategy and data acquisition role.
Disclaimer? Disclaimer?
No disclaimer. I'm good.
Okay. Vijay, introduce yourself.
Sure. Happy to be here. Vijay Iyengar, joined Eisai almost a year ago now. I head up the commercial strategic solutions area, which includes sales, marketing, medical, HEOR, innovation. I have no idea what else. Technologist by trade, marketer at heart, but a problem solver at mind. Long walks on the beach, some scotch, that'll get me going.
Okay, so all the vendors in the house, if you want to know the shortcut to Vijay's heart, it would be scotch. So, go for the top shelf if you're going to head that direction. Kimberly!
Hey, Seth.
How are you?
I'm great. How are you? Well, I'm really excited to be here. This is a really awesome opportunity. I really appreciate you reaching out to be part of the panel this year. So thank you for that, first and foremost. So I started my career actually with Allergan 3 years ago. Starting my career, I was with Sharing Cloud Merck many years ago. And then I moved over to Johnson & Johnson. I've been with Celgene. Then I was with a smaller pharma company called Pharma. And then I moved over to Allergan almost 3 years ago now, which actually has now become Abbvie in the interim. But so I am Director of Business Technology Operations, and I'm aligned to our access and reimbursement teams specifically, in which I deliver on field technology systems and solutions for the betterment of the sales teams, for the betterment of the field analytics teams, to better mine their data and to better understand their data when out in the field.
I got you. So you're all about better. But what I see here is we have sort of 3 different types of people that are involved in data analytics and how that pertains to the overall customer experience. Chris is sort of on the evaluation and acquisition side, Vijay in the implementation of marketing technology, and then Kim looking at things from supporting the field force and translating data to be able to improve their interactions with their customers. So let me start with this. This might be a challenging question, and we'll start with Chris. Can customer experience be quantified using data?
It can, and depending on which customers you look at, it really depends on what data and how you're going to quantify that. One of the big things in my previous role from a data management standpoint was taking a look at how engaged were our customers in the data that we were using. And so one of the key metrics that we looked at was an engagement score. And so one of the things we tried to look at and quantify was which data was being used, what parts of the data were being used, to then leverage that to either address any training issues with data that wasn't being used that we were acquiring, or the data that was being used, understand better how that was being used so that it's being utilized to its fullest extent. And then from that feeds into like current role of informing the data strategy. So do we need to make some adjustments in order to have a better experience in meeting the goals of the business, the end customer, whether that is digital, whether it's marketing, whether it's sales operations, so that they at the end can answer their most pressing needs and deliver on their strategy.
So what I'm hearing is kind of like medicine. If it's unused, it can do no good.
Exactly.
Vijay, what do you think? Can CX be quantified using data in the world you live in, or
Well,
is it just a feeling? Is it just tangible?
So there's a commonality between data and people, which is the more you interrogate people, they'll tell you exactly what you want to hear, and that's exactly with data. The more you interrogate data, it'll tell you exactly what you want to hear. But the problem is we don't know the right question to ask. That seems to be where the challenge lies. I mean, there's enormous amounts of data, especially within the commercial space, right from the third-party channels we interact with on walled gardens to Salesforce interactions with our HCPs, banner ads, emails, everything in between. Unfortunately, we don't ask the right questions. Curating that data was a problem before. Now we have made strides in establishing data lakes, unstructured data, structured data, whatnot, to get better asking intelligent questions so it can tell us what we want to hear.
Now, are those questions determined by the data, or are they determined by the user?
No, the user, obviously. That's where your question. Okay. That's where your question gets answered, right? I mean, CX is all about asking the right question, so you get the right answer, and the user asks the right question.
Well, if the data was going to ask itself in an AI functionality, then we wouldn't be needed anymore. So that might be the future.
It'll happen. 3021 when we'll be on this call with you, Seth, it'll be there.
Maybe it'll just be our robot android avatars still having this conversation. Yeah. So Kim, data, CX, you're pushing data out and helping your sales team understand the data, understand what they're doing and trying to improve. Can the experience for the end user, can the experience for your employees, can that be quantified using data?
It can actually. So yeah, based on the delivery of the technology that I was instrumental in driving for the particular team that I implemented it for. We built it based upon various use cases at the time, with them really not having a whole lot of anything from a systems perspective to look at their data. So the solution that we delivered was built on various use cases to get them started. And so the use cases really help them to answer a lot of questions through the data, because we built that data for those specific questions that they wanted to answer. And then at the end of the day, it was helpful in working with their customers that they call on, because of the fact that they were able to see now the data that the end customer or that the customer that they call on had visibility to, minus any sort of patient-related information, because that all has to be masked and blinded, what have you, due to HIPAA, obviously. So, but in terms of the data that they are able to see, that really helped the field user and the customer come together as one sort of unit, because then they were able to share the information back and forth, and they were really the sales team was able to help the customer drive patient therapy.
So that brought a question to my mind, which is, what if you don't believe the data?
So the data was actually based on what the it's a
What
little
if the
bit
sales rep
different.
doesn't believe the data? You're trying to make it better, and the sales rep says,
Sure.
"You know what? I don't believe that."
Yeah, so I guess this data is a little bit different in the sense that the data is actually what is inputted by the customer at the end of the day. So there is a portal that the account, that the office manager, office staff has access to, that they're entering the information into, and so the sales team member is actually able to have access to, you know, a specific amount of that information where they're able to then you know, share back and forth whatever is required based on whatever questions come up from the account that they need to ask of the sales team member. You know, whatever that sort of inquiry is, or you know, that's the best way to put it, is whatever that inquiry is that comes through from a specific account to that particular field representative, they're able to see that same level, to a certain degree, that same level of data that the customer has visibility.
So the proof is in the data, huh?
Yes, it is actually.
Now, Vijay, you are a marketer, and you think something very specific about your particular market, but the data says something completely different. How do you reconcile that, right? Like, how do you what if you don't want to believe the data?
Well, that has been happening until now, right? I mean,
right.
The reason why we are on certain channels is just because our gut tells us to be on that channel, or our competitor is on that channel and they have a banner ad. I need to be on the channel as well. Whereas when you do the next best action analysis, you know, look at the historical data, look at the untapped potential. The data might tell a different story. It's saying this HCP does not need you to put a banner ad in front of him. This HCP does not need a rep in front of him. You know, the best way to get this HCP is send an email or send a business reply card or whatever. Mm-hmm. How do you reconcile? It takes a village, or it adds to attrition, right? If the rep in that case that Kimberly was mentioning, if that rep is not able to reconcile, it adds to attrition. I mean, from an oncology perspective, right? And I just want to take this opportunity to say disclaimer. Whatever I'm saying is my own my own thoughts and not represented by the company. But mm-hmm. From an oncology perspective, I've seen occurrences where the incentive compensation that was set and the data that it represents. So, for example, if an HCP moves from one place to the other, if they fall off the target list, the reps are pretty annoyed by this change of data. It adds to attrition. Mm-hmm. It hits their bottom line. They would leave and go. So there's a human element. There's some pragmatic way to look at the data, but that's where the problem lies.
And so, Chris, you have.
I love these conversations because I always say, trust the data. The data doesn't lie. And I frequently run into this, and Vijay, as much as you say for oncology, it's probably the most complex area in pharma and the toughest area when it comes to data and really believing in what the data is telling you. And where I'm getting at is when you look at key opinion leaders, or when you look at Abbvie data and try and compare that to actually real world evidence data, they may tell a different story. And there are reasons for that. Key opinion leaders act in a very specific way, not in the broad sense of how patients are being treated or how insurance companies, dictate or have formularies on how patients should be treated. And so you have to really reconcile those differences and come to an agreement on whatever methodology or rules or market definition needs to be applied on top of that data to give you the best representation of what the data is trying to tell you is happening in the real world versus what you're seeing in a very small, confined little area. So that it takes a lot of time to get people to get on board and trust that, to see some of the true evidence of how patients are treated. And the only way is to look at broad sets of data to get you down to that detail.
So is there such a thing as too much data? Or
yes.
Will we get to a point where there's too much data?
Yeah, there can always be too much data. and I mean in terms of quantity of data for sure. I think it's important to narrow down what exactly you're trying to accomplish, and be laser focused on that. I mean, for us at Bayer, one of the things we're moving into, for instance, is micro segmentation. So taking these big vats of data and bringing it down to very micro segments to really hit on those target people or target customers that we want to impact with our message. Just like in the last session around digital, that's probably the area where there's most focus on right now, in getting to that micro segmentation to pinpoint with digital campaigns and have a really effective interaction with the customer to really guide your message and guide patient care.
Now, I don't know why Vijay isn't smiling, because one of his hobbies is microsegmentation, correct?
So I will answer the question a little bit differently. I think there is nothing called too much data, because we're not asking the right question, and the data is trying to answer us something from a commercial perspective. We think it is extraneous, we think it is unnecessary, but I think the problem lies within the way we look at the data. We're not asking the right question that the data is trying to tell us, which is where I think we need to kind of get better at.
Kim, can there be too much data?
Yeah, I mean, it could certainly lead to analysis paralysis, I think. I think you have to be very targeted in the approach of how you're utilizing the data, what you want to deliver on, because, to reiterate, it can become that analysis paralysis situation if you deliver too much and too fast. I think there has to be a methodical approach to it as well. For example, in the delivery, I'll go back to the delivery of the system that I had implemented actually last year, where, it was a new system that they were going to be using from what they had come from prior, which really wasn't working at all, unfortunately. And they were sort of blind to a lot of the information that they just didn't have visibility to in a lot of cases. So, given the fact that we were delivering on something new with more robust data now that we had access to, we had to start off slow. And given, what I mentioned before about the use cases, we wanted to be very targeted in the approach of what we were delivering on, and certain business questions that, of course, the business owners wanted to have addressed first and foremost through that data, and what they wanted the field representatives to look at specifically. So, once they got a handle on that and got used to it, then it was, we'll build from there. But you can't just deliver on, the moon and the stars, initially. It becomes very challenging.
Well, as a rep, you can only eat so much,
right?
Data that's coming out, and then have to recalibrate your entire lifestyle in order to.
Yeah, it also speaks to strategic planning, right? So, we're actually moving into conversations now to say, okay, what's on tap for this year? Yeah, it's March, but we need to think about, the remainder of Q2, and as we move into the rest of the year, what do we need to focus on? And let's deliver on those focus areas from a data perspective.
Nobody reads those business plans, Kim. You know that.
I think they do.
Oh yeah, but they certainly are a useful exercise.
Yeah.
So thinking about the vanguard of technology and the new data that we have, or uses for that data, Chris, what's a new way that we are leveraging data or implementing data?
Probably the newest way is Snowflake.
Okay.
And it's so versatile as a tool, from a data warehouse and housing data and making it available to the users, to actually how as a company like Bayer, we interact with our vendors. So the traditional historical way of getting data and loading it is you get all these files, you deliver it off to an SFTP, then you have to download that, go through the ETL process, stage it, and then you're talking days and days and days of doing this. And now through technology with AWS in the cloud, you've got Snowflake in the cloud, you got a Abbvie and this is the disclaimer, I'm not picking out any certain vendor, just using names, Symphony Health, who are on Snowflake now. And so when you talk about data being available in the cloud on a share, now it's immediate. Once that data is there, immediately I can bring it into my environment and publish that data. So what took days or weeks for some companies now takes a matter of hours.
It really does. You're so right,
I
Chris.
remember getting, yeah, no, I when I was a rep, Kim used to send out data to the field that was like 6 months old, right? And
Yeah.
so
It's true. Yeah.
what are we supposed to do with this now?
Right. It's not
months later?
actionable at that point.
Yeah.
So Chris, if we reconvene in a year, will anybody know what Snowflake is still?
Good question.
Or will it just be replaced by the technology du jour?
I think the way they're going to stick around. They build up such a base and they keep building on top of the technology they have. I sure hope it's not gone in a year. It means a lot of money if it's not.
Vijay, a new way of implementing data.
I think again correlation. Chris answered it from a technical perspective, but one of the things I did in my previous life when I was with Sanofi was it was a flu shot. It was a vaccine. We tried to take CDC data and we tried to take the pollen data and then try to correlate disparate data sets to find out which region would have the most prevalence of that particular disease state, right? For Alzheimer's, we can, we're going to be looking at something similar to that. We're trying to look at EMR data and then trying to correlate that with some early warning, AD symptoms to see if our therapy would be a best fit for that. So, breaking the silos of traditional, IMS, IQVIA, Symphony, field, marketing data, and adding additional correlations into that is probably the new landscape of how we're going to start uncovering new insights.
I did not know that pollen causes.
It's logical,
Alzheimer's.
Right? If you
So that might be a headline here.
No, that was different. Pollen was for vaccines, and this I gave you two examples. Two different.
No, I'm not going to get you in any trouble. But and plus, you were representing Sanofi there too, so it doesn't really matter. Kim, new ways of using data.
Oh, new ways of using data. So, certainly through these that have perhaps like an AI capability. With artificial intelligence now, there are solutions, and one of the solutions that I have delivered in the past, I think the company would probably be thrilled if I did mention their name. It's a product called ThoughtSpot, and it actually has a search engine built into it, which actually has, it's transformed the way a lot of people look at data. It's if you envision just, how Google operates today, you want to look for, a pair of Nike sneakers, specific size, specific color. It's doing that with your data and looking up specifically, certain, as long as you understand the data and, certain aspects to the data, the system learns over time and can actually alert you to specific data components, within the overall picture of the data that's loaded into the system. So, through the delivery of a tool like that, it's really given the end user the autonomy to build their own reports, to be very timely in, looking at their data for a specific question that they need to ask, and having those results, return instantaneously on a dime for, when they're out in the field, especially, they're connected to Wi-Fi. I have a specific question on my data. I could just go in and access it and, and take a look at it immediately, So
are you implementing any AI into this facing platform and the system that you had talked about earlier, or is that more of a sort of a straight data transfer?
No, we're actually in the process of talking through a lot of different things right now and use cases on how to leverage that capability, and something that we're actually that we're looking to move towards, given the fact that capability is there, innate within the system.
Gotcha. Awesome. So I am contractually obligated as a moderator at a conference, and you are also contractually obligated as a guest and on a data and analytics panel to answer this question in the following manner. The answer is blockchain. So, Chris, what is the future of data and analytics?
I think it's going to become.
I've already given you the answer. Just say it.
Blockchain.
Vijay, what is the future of data and analytics?
We call it blockchain today, but next year I don't know what it will be called.
Kim, future of data and analytics?
Blockchain.
There you go. Okay, now we've fulfilled our obligations and we can go ahead and move on. So before we end here, Vijay has already outlined his requests to all the vendors in the audience. So, Chris, when somebody comes and knocks on your door, what bottle of liquor should they bring?
A nice bottle of red wine.
Okay. Anything in particular? A blend, a Chianti, Merlot,
Yes.
perhaps a Syrah?
Yes.
Yeah. And Kim, if somebody comes to visit you, they should bring what?
I would agree with Chris. So a nice bottle of red wine, and I tend to go with Cabernet.
Okay, so they can buy the case and
Absolutely.
reduce
Well,
the cost.
hold on. They can.
And I'll give my winery membership so they get a discount.
There you go.
They can take them on a vineyard trip, and they can take me to the Isle of Lafroy. I'll pick my own bottle.
I'll go to Lafroy. Yeah. So thank you guys. I really appreciate your perspectives on data analytics here in the CX space. We do have another panel coming up, or I'm sorry, a presentation coming up at 4:15. So we have a couple more minutes to hop out into the floor plan and network with some folks. So thank you, everybody. Go meet somebody new, and we'll see you here in about 3 minutes.
Thank you.
Great.
Thank you for the
Thank you.
opportunity, Seth.
Take care, Seth.
Bye.
Have a good
Take care.
afternoon.